Alrighty. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you find yourself today. My name is Nana Osei Bonsu Jr. of Africa International Organization and Sector Leadership International. And you are welcome to Leadership Academy. Leadership 101 is what we're going to start today. Before we start today's discussion, I want to encourage everybody who wants to be a part of this discussion. As the title suggests, the Leadership Academy. It's going to be a very thorough discussion where you can choose to take notes. We are targeting the youth, but as a matter of fact, the content of what we're going to be discussing um, goes beyond the youth. So it doesn't matter your age if you want to be a part, if you want to really understand this whole concept of leadership, as to what it has been used for, either to build a nation or to destroy a nation. We're going to be discussing all that. And so if you want to be a part of it, via Zoom, today, I'm pretty sure we are not going to have any participants on Zoom, um, with the exception of myself, of course. If you want to be a part of it via Zoom, contribute, maybe ask questions, interact, and stuff like that, you can, you would have to, even though the link is there, we will provide uh, the login and the password, which is on the flyer. Those of you who have seen the flyers and who are joining us because of the flyers, you are going to see that we have a password and the ID number by which you can join the discussion. But if you want the link for security reasons, if you want the link and some unscrupulous activities of some individuals, we are not giving out or sharing the link on social media. But if you want the link, you can hit us up on the WhatsApp number and we can send you the link. Or if you want to log on via the ID and the password, you have to log on to Zoom. You would have to log on to Zoom in order for you to do that in our next section, because we want to verify people who are logging on. Admission is free. We're verifying because we don't want anybody who doesn't want to be a part of the discussion to come and disrupt the discussions, because there's a serious business. It's about life. It's about Africans. It's about African descents, people of African descents. It's about humanity as a whole. So that's the perspective we're coming from. So this is serious business. So if you want to be a part of it, you can communicate with us and we will definitely be more than happy to get you or enroll you into the discussion and the participation of Leadership Academy. So this is going to be Leadership 101, where we're going to start from the basics and talk about, before we talk about what leadership is, we want to talk about what leadership is not. And as I said, it's going to be a discussion and a thorough one. We are all going to learn from this discussion. So we'll be looking for definitions and stuff like that. We will search for definitions either via Google or any means available to you, um, to help you understand and to follow the discussions. So I know that most of us, leadership has been one of the intriguing topics, or anytime we talk about leadership or we hear of leadership, it kind of set us into thinking. Um, and for most people, it's the verb that quickly comes to mind when we think of leadership. Um, Today we'll be looking at the verb, we'll be looking at the noun as well. So the verb which is leading or being a leader to a group of people or a section of people, we'll look at that as well. We are going to segment this academy or this discussions into 30 minutes every section. We're going to have it within 30 minutes. We know most people want to be a part of the discussion, but due to data, especially in Africa, due to data, people don't want to stay on for long. So we're going to segment into 30 minutes, and within 30 minutes, we're done. So please stay along. So as I said, when we talk about leadership or when we hear leadership, what first comes into mind is the verb, that is the leading. There is an old Chinese statement which says, if you think you are leading without a following, you are simply taking a walk. If you think you're leading without a following. So in other words, if you think you're a leader or you are leading and you have no people or nobody following you, it's not leading, you're simply taking a walk. But today we will look beyond just the verb leading into leadership, which is the noun. And like I said, we're going to look at what leadership is not. That is the premise I want us to start from. So most of those of us who or those who are interested in philosophy or classical philosophy would understand that it's believed that the modern human society or the modern system of our society is being shaped by the concept of Greek philosophers. Um, so some of the concepts, some of the ancient Greek philosophers, or some of the ancient Greek philosophies most of our human societies are built upon. I have two concepts. I always say that there is a concept of building a community, building a society, building a progressive society, developing a people. That is one aspect. And there is also the concept um, which is seek to denigrate or, so to speak, um, oppress a certain group of people. And we'll take a look at both. One of the concepts which seem to happen to be a two-edged sword, so to speak, is that concept of leadership, the concept of leadership. So we'll be doing a little of studies here today. If you take a look at the Greek concept of leadership, as I said earlier on, we're going to be studying today. We'll be learning today. If you take a look at the original or the original definition of leadership, it has three main segments. That was what the ancient Greek philosophers segmented the leadership into, and one of them is charisma. Charisma, and charisma, it simply means gifts or grace of the gods. Gift or grace of the gods. In other words, in order for you to be a leader, you have to be gifted by the gods. It does not, you can't go to school to learn it. It's not something just anybody can be a part of it. You would have to be gifted by the gods. In other words, it has a divine touch to being a leader. And the second one is Basilius. Those of you who want to write, I'm going to spell it Basilius. Basilius, which simply means a ruler or a king. A ruler or a king. In Homeric Greece, it implies you are divinely selected. In the Homeric Greece, it implies that you're divinely selected. So, as I said, charisma, it's the grace or the giftings of the gods. That is one aspect. The second one is Basilius. In other words, a ruler or a king who has been divinely selected. So you cannot be a ruler, you cannot be a king if you are not divinely selected by the gods. So you realize divinity runs through the definition, the ancient Greek definition of leadership. And the last one is what we call Moira. Moira. Um, Again, those of you who are writing, the spelling is M-O-I-R, the M-O-I-R-A, M-O-I-R-A, Moira, which also simply means fate or destiny, fate or destiny. So you realize that these three concepts, charisma, Basilius, Moira, it's connected to divinity. So that happens to be the foundation of the development of the concept of leadership by the Greek philosophers. And so you realize that it implies that if you are not selected divinely, you cannot be a leader. And let me state this. Truthfully, there is some level of, I wouldn't allude it to divinity, but I would say um, um, innate aspect to leadership. We're not going to talk about that now. We'll get there. Now we're talking about what leadership is not. We just first want to debunk the misconception and to unlearn, so to speak, some of the garbage that has filled our minds for us to think in a particular way, which is also preventing us from understanding leadership in its right perspective. So we are unlearning now. So please, let's get along. So these three concepts or these three foundational definitions given by the Greek philosophers implies that leadership is precluded to a certain group of people. You cannot, not just anybody can be a leader. Some people are destined or born to follow or not to be leaders. We were a certain group of people were born to follow and not to become leaders or not to be leaders. And a certain group of people were also born to be leaders, to rule over other people. And you realize that is where the aristocratic system was developed, where it is believed that some group of people are mandated or divinely selected to rule. So if you're not within that category, you cannot be a ruler, or you cannot be a king, or you cannot be a leader. So when we talk about charisma, this concept has eaten into the fabric of leadership concept, to the extent that you hear people who have been to higher learnings of institutions still believe that you ought to have a certain level of charisma to be a leader. And again, we're talking about what leadership is not. You don't need any level of charisma to be a leader. let's look at it from this perspective. We're talking about charisma being the giftings of the gods. If we are looking at it literally, the giftings of the gods, there is some truth to that concept. Everybody has a gift. Every individual born on earth has a gift. So, in the literal sense of the word, the giftings of the gods, yes, then in that sense, charisma plays a role in leadership. Please follow me. I am developing a point here. In the literal sense of the word charisma, which happens to be the giftings or the gifts or the grace of the gods, in that literal sense, it means yes, leadership has everything to do with charisma. But in the reality, in the real sense of the word charisma, or let me say, the original concept behind charisma, which means that you have to be chosen, you have to be appointed or anointed. You know, when you look at the Greek definitions, it has chosen, anointing, appointed, and all that divinely. Then no, it's not the concept behind. So I believe most of us know what we call the letter of the word and the spirit of the word. When we talk about, we're not talking about spiritual things here. When we talk about the spirit of the spirit of the word simply means the intent. So when we say the spirit of the law, it means the intention behind the creation of the law. That's the spirit of the law. And the letter of the law is the scripted, the script inscription of the law, which means you're not supposed to drive more than 50 miles per hour on this road. So they put that sign by the road. That is the inscription, which is the letter of the word or of the law, sorry. But the spirit of the law is the intention behind. What is the intention behind the speed limit being 50 kilometers per hour? It is because they have per scientific research concluded that in case of any accident on this particular road, when you're doing 50 miles per hour or 50 kilometers per hour, whichever implies, the chances of you surviving or the chances of the accident not being fatal is high if you're driving within a certain limit or within a certain speed limit. So that is the letter of the law. The speed limit written, posted by the roadside is the letter of the law. But the spirit of the law is the intention behind the speed limit being 50 miles per hour. In other words, scientifically, it's been, or they've researched to prove or to understand that if you're driving 50 miles per hour or 50 kilometers per hour, whichever it applies to where you're watching us from, it means that when there is an accident or if anything goes wrong within that speed limit, the fatality would be minimized. So that is the intention, which happens to be the spirit of the law. So what I'm trying to say is charisma, as the literal definition is the giftings of the gods, which has divine appointment, divine selection, um, chosen divinely, and all this stuff. If you're taking it literally, then yes, charisma has a role to play in leadership. But if we're looking at it from the intent of the concept of charisma being introduced in the leadership, then no, you don't need to be specially appointed by any gods. You don't need to be chosen by any gods over any group of people. So the concept of charisma in leadership is wrong. Let me put it bluntly. It's wrong. So when we talk about leadership, the issue of charisma does not come in, as in the concept or the intent behind that concept of charisma does not come in. If you're looking at it from the literal sense of the word, as I said, yes, then we all birth with gifts. Okay, so if there's the literal sense of the word charisma, then we all birthed with gifts. So that applies. But the intent of the framers or the definers of leadership, that does not come in. And then the second one is Basilius. As being, as I said, the Homeric Greece, it implies that you're divinely selected. That also is an erroneous impression, or it's an erroneous concept or definition of leadership. We are not selected above other group of people when it comes to leadership. No one is selected above any group of leadership. Maybe when we continue next week, we would come to understand the concept of a leadership and the verb and the noun, and we can marry the two to get a clearer picture of why I am giving this premise upon which we're going to build our leadership lessons. So it is important that if you want to write, you write, so we can get a better understanding of where we're going with Leadership Academy. As I said, this class or this sections we're going to be having is going to help us understand and make us choose wisely, especially when we are talking to people, when we're talking to candidates who want to vie for positions in our communities, in our countries. We know what to look out for, and we know what kind of even questions to ask them, especially those of you who are journalists amongst us, who intends to interview or question people who are vying for positions of power. And so then we come to Moira, which is fate and destiny. Again, when we look at the literal sense of the word fate and destiny, yes, we the literal sense of the word destiny, yes, we all have that gifts. We have the potential, but fate as to what divinity has set for your life, that is not true. Again, so you realize it follows all three pillars of the Greek, the ancient Greek definition of leadership has a linkage from charisma, from Basilius, and to Moira. All three has a linkage. So today we're going to end here in the next 4 minutes by establishing the premise that the original concept or the original definition of leadership given by the Homeric Greek, it is what has contributed to the erroneous impression and the erroneous definition of leadership. So, first of all, we have come to understand that leadership has nothing to do with a group of people being selected to lead, or a group of people being chosen to rule over a certain group of people. That is not leadership. I don't want to introduce, we're going to take it slow because we are building a new group and a new crop of leadership who would understand what leadership is and who would take up the mantle when it is their turn, or when they are given the opportunity, or when they created the opportunity themselves to exhibit and to dispense leadership within their community. They would do it right. because that is the concept, that is the spirit of this Leadership Academy, the classes we've begun today. And so we're going to take it slow. Today, I just want us to have these three basic pillars, which were defined by the ancient Greek philosophers as the definition of leadership to be wrong. You can do your own research. The most beautiful thing about the times we live in is that internet and a whole bunch of AI lately being introduced into our system is making it easy for us to learn, except you don't want to learn. And if you don't want to learn, people are going to rule over you out of your ignorance. It is knowledge, information, truth, which empowers us to live a successful life. And that is exactly what we are doing on this channel. And so next week, I'm not too sure about next week, but we're planning to maintain the consistency Fridays, every Friday, 5:30. But next week, I am packed. My schedule is crazy next week. I will try to see if I'm not able to make it next week. I should know by Monday. So the flyers will come out on Monday, and it'll elect all of you. Please share the information, especially the younger group of leaders we're building. We please want you to be a part of this Leadership Academy, so we will be able to equip ourselves and better position ourselves to dispense leadership to the benefit of our community, especially the African and people of African descent. We really need to shape and reshape, unlearn and relearn the true concept of leadership. Once again, my name is Nana Osebonsu Jr., and I'm coming your way via AfriWIC International Organization and Certo Leadership International. Watch out for the flyers for the next batch or the next section of Leadership Academy. And I really appreciate your time with us on Leadership 101. The next time we meet, we are going to continue with Leadership Academy. Share, invite people to be a part of it, especially the younger ones to be a part of it. So together we'll equip ourselves and build our continent and humanity at large. See you next time. Stay safe. Bye-bye.